Hello and welcome back to Sovereign Thinking. My name is Michael and today we will be reading part 4 of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series by Robert Kiyosaki. We pretty much start right off the heels of the lessons that Mike's dad wants to bestow upon Robert and Mike. And by that, I mean we dive deeper into how emotions factor into our relationship with money and making money. Before we begin, please note that this video is not offering financial advice. Rather, we are reading Robert Kiyosaki's work for entertainment purposes only, where I provide commentary with my own personal thoughts, reviewing what we have read. Let's begin. My highly educated dad recommended that I do what he did. Son, I want you to study hard, get good grades so that you can find a safe, secure job with a big company, and make sure it has excellent benefits. My rich dad wanted me to learn how money works so I could make it work for me. These lessons I would learn through life with his guidance, not because of a classroom. My rich dad continued my first lesson. I'm glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you hadn't got angry and had simply accepted it, I would have to tell you that I cannot teach you. You see, true learning takes energy, passion, and a burning desire. Anger is a big part of that formula, for passion is anger and love combined. When it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure, so passion does not direct them, fear does. So is that why they'll take jobs with low pay, I asked? Yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say that people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine. But don't you feel that you should pay them more, I asked? I don't have to. And besides, more money will not solve their problems. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money and he still can't pay his bills. Most people, given more money, only get into more debt. So that's why the 10 cents an hour, I said, smiling. It's a part of the lesson. That's right, smiled Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an excellent education so he could get a high-paying job. But he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believes in working for money. And you don't, I asked? No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then I will teach you that, but only if you want to learn. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that, I asked? No, said Rich Dad. Simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear is your primary emotion when the subject of money is discussed. I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or trade and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money and then get angry at their boss. Fear is one of the best ways to control a person. And quite frankly, we didn't even need the last 3 years or so to tell us that when there are countless examples of it in human history as we know it. With that said, Mike's dad has wisely allowed Robert to express his emotions and to feel angry. With Robert in that state of mind, Mike's dad can thoroughly guide him on how to direct those emotions and work with his feelings instead of letting those feelings consume him. Mike's dad is also a very big picture thinker, and in a detail-oriented world, big picture thinkers are hard to find. Let's continue reading. We sat in silence on that beautiful Hawaiian Saturday morning. My friends had just started their Little League baseball game, but for some reason, I was now thankful I had decided to work for 10 cents an hour. I sensed that I was about to learn something my friends wouldn't learn in school. Ready to learn? Asked Rich Dad. Absolutely, I said with a grin. I have kept my promise. I've been teaching you from afar, my rich dad said. At 9 years old, you've gotten a taste of what it feels like to work for money. Just multiply your last month by 50 years and you will have an idea of what most people spend their life doing. I don't understand, I said. How did you feel waiting in line to see me? wants to get hired and wants to ask for more money. Terrible, I said. If you choose to work for money, that is what life will be like, said Rich Dad. And how did you feel when Mrs. Martin dropped 3 dimes in your hand for 3 hours of work? I felt like it wasn't enough. It seemed like nothing. I was disappointed, I said. And that is how most employees feel when they look at their paychecks, especially after all the tax and other deductions are taken out. At least you got 100%. You mean most workers don't get paid everything? I asked with amazement. Heavens no, said Rich Dad. The government always takes its share first. How do they do that? I asked. Taxes, said Rich Dad. You're taxed when you earn, you're taxed when you spend, you're taxed when you save, you're taxed when you die. Why do people let the government do that to them? The rich don't, said Rich Dad with a smile. The poor and the middle class do. I'll bet you that I earn more than your dad, yet he pays more in taxes. How can that be? I asked. At my age, that made no sense to me. Why would someone let the government do that to them? Rich Dad slowly and silently in his chair, just looking at me. Ready to learn, he asked. I nodded my head slowly. So 20 years ago today, as governments expand and need more money, the only place to get it is the middle class. That means the workers. Every government now favors the professional investor and business owners. Workers pay tax, investors and business owners pay very little tax if they use the tax law as intended, as a tool to build the economy. Again, Mike's dad has a very big picture point of view when it comes to making money. They don't teach this perspective on taxes in school for a reason. Before I go on, I just want to point out that this book has got some triggers in it. Reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad verbatim in today's day and age does make it come across as a direct criticism of the modern times that we live in. And in fact, it is a direct criticism. Even though this book was originally published in 1997 and the storyline takes place back in the 50s, a lot of the concepts that were taught in public schools everywhere in the last 20 years will likely be juxtaposed as we continue reading through this book. If you find yourself getting triggered, just take a breath and write down what triggered you in your journal. I do plan on going through a simple exercise to help you guide you on working through your triggers in Friday's journal exercise. But let's continue reading. As I said, there is a lot to learn. Learning how to have money work for you is a lifetime study. Most people go to college for 4 years and their education ends. I already know that my study of money will continue over my lifetime, simply because the more I find out, the more I find out I need to know. Most people never study the subject. They go to work, get their paycheck, balance their checkbooks, and that's it. Then they wonder why they have money problems. They think that more money will solve the problem and don't realize that it's their lack of financial education that is the problem. Look, said Rich Dad, taxes are just one small section on learning how to have money work for you. Today I just wanted to find out if you still have the passion to learn about money. Most people don't. They want to go to school, learn a profession, have fun at their work, and earn lots of money. One day they wake up with big money problems, and then they can't stop working. That's the price of only knowing how to work for money, instead of studying how to have money work for you. So do you still have the passion to learn? Asked Rich Dad. I nodded my head. Good, said Rich Dad. Now get back to work. This time I will pay you nothing. What? I asked in amazement. You heard me. Nothing. You will work for the same 3 hours every Saturday, but this time you will not be paid 10 cents per hour. You said you wanted to learn to not work for money, so I'm not going to pay you anything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've already had this conversation with Mike, and he's already working, dusting and stacking canned goods for free. You better hurry and get back there. That's not fair, I shouted. You've got to pay something. You said you wanted to learn. If you don't learn this lesson now, you'll grow up and be like the 2 women and the older man sitting in my living room, working for money and hoping that I don't fire them. Or like your dad, earning lots of money only to be in debt up to his eyeballs, hoping that more money will solve the problem. If that's what you want, I'll go back to our original deal of 10 cents an hour. Or you can do what most adults do, complain that there is not enough pay, quit, and go looking for another job. Well, what do? I asked. Rich Dad tapped me on the head. Use this, he said. If you use it well, you will soon thank me for giving you an opportunity and you will grow into a rich man. I stood there still not believing what a raw deal I was handed. I came here to ask for a raise and somehow I ended up working for nothing. Rich Dad tapped me on the head again and said, use this. Now get out of here and get back to work. Now don't get me wrong, this book isn't all just one big criticism on today's society and economy. The big point that Mike's dad is making here is that Robert has to connect with himself to figure out how to make money himself using his own head. And it isn't just Robert who has this capability, it's everyone. I have one more passage to read, so let's continue reading. For 3 more weeks, Mike and I worked 3 hours every Saturday for nothing. The work didn't bother me, and the routine got easier, but it was the missed baseball games and not being able to afford to buy a few comic books that got to me. How's it going, boys? Okay, Mike said. I nodded in agreement. Learn anything yet? Rich Dad asked. Mike and I looked at each other, shrugged our shoulders, and shook our heads in unison. Well, boys, you'd better start thinking. You're starting at one of life's biggest lessons. If you learn it, you'll enjoy a life of great freedom and security. If you don't, you'll wind up like Mrs. Martin and most of the people playing softball in this park. They work very hard for little money, clinging to the illusion of job security and looking forward to a 3-week vacation each year and maybe a skimpy pension after 45 years of service. If that excites you, I'll give you a raise to 25 cents an hour. But these are good, hardworking people. Are you making fun of them? I demanded. A smile came over Rich Dad's face. Mrs. Martin is like a mother to me. I would never be that cruel. I may sound unkind because I'm doing my best to point out something out to the two of you. I want to expand your point of view so that you can see something that most people never have the benefit of seeing because their vision is too narrow. Most people never see the trap they are in. He was testing us, and he knew that there was a part of our emotions that wanted to take the deal. He understood that every person has a weak and needy part of their soul that can be bought, and he knew that every individual also had a part of their soul that was resilient and could never be bought. It was only a question of which was stronger. Okay, $5 an hour. Suddenly I was silent. Something had changed. The offer was too big and ridiculous. Not many grown-ups in 1956 made more than that, but quickly my temptation disappeared and calm set in. Slowly I turned to my left to look at Mike. He looked back at me. The part of my soul that was weak and needy was silenced. The part of me that had no price took over. I knew Mike had gotten to that point too. Good, Rich Dad said softly. Most people have a price. And they have a price because of human emotions named fear and greed. First, the fear of being without money motivates us to work hard. And then once we get that paycheck, greed or desire starts us thinking about all the wonderful things money can buy. The pattern is then set. What pattern? I asked. The pattern of get up, go to work, pay bills. People's lives are forever controlled by two emotions, fear and greed. Offer them more money, and they continue the cycle by increasing their spending. This is what I call the rat race. We're kind of tired of working hard, especially for nothing. Well, the first step is telling the truth, said Rich Dad. We haven't been lying, I said. I did not say that you were lying. I said to tell the truth, Rich Dad retorted. The truth about what? I asked. How you're feeling, Rich Dad said. You don't have to say it to anyone else. Just admit it to yourself. You mean the people in this park, the people who work for you, Mrs. Martin, they don't do that? I asked. I doubt it, said Rich Dad. Instead, they feel the fear of not having money. They don't confront it logically. They react emotionally instead of using their heads, Rich Dad said. Then they get a few bucks in their hands, and again, the emotions of joy, desire, and greed take over. And again, they think and again they react instead of think. So their emotions control their brain, Mike said. That's correct, said Rich Dad. Instead of admitting the truth about how they feel, they react to their feelings and fail to think. They feel the fear, so they go to work, hoping that money will soothe the fear, but it doesn't. It continues to haunt them, and they continue to work, hoping again that money will calm their fears, and again it doesn't. Fear keeps them in this trap of working, earning money, working, earning money, hoping the fear will go away, but every day they get up, and that old fear wakes up with them. For millions of people, that old fear keeps them awake all night, causing a night of turmoil and worry, so they get up and go to work, hoping that a paycheck will kill that fear gnawing at their soul. Money is running their lives, and they refuse to tell the truth about that. Money is in control of their emotions and their souls. Even since 1997, when this book was published, and way before that then, the concept of the rat race isn't a new one in the slightest. I think that this was one of the first times where the concept of the rat race was ever explained to me explicitly as a system and a pattern. Like I mentioned, this will be the last passage I read for today's video. Coming up, we begin to witness how Mike's dad's lessons continue to unfold even further. Before that, you can expect another journal exercise to be published this Friday, and the main focus of that journal exercise will be to work through any triggers that this part and last part may have, triggered in you if that was the case. If not, those exercises will just be handy to have in your back pocket for whenever you need them. I have also listed the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book in the description box below if you wanted to pick up a copy for yourself. As always, please just take what vibes with you, leave what doesn't, and just take it one day at a time. I want to thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.